Section 1. A shared word, unveiling the dual nature of sin. The word sin carries a weighty significance in both the realms of mathematics and spirituality. In the context of religion and morality, it speaks to actions that deviate from divine law or ethical principles. These transgressions often cause harm to oneself or others, leading to feelings of guilt, shame, and a sense of separation from the divine. Yet, intriguingly, the same word takes on a purely abstract meaning within the realm of mathematics, specifically in trigonometry. Here, sin refers to the sine function, a fundamental concept that describes the ratio of sides in a right-angled triangle. This seemingly disparate use of the same word might appear coincidental at first glance. However, a deeper exploration reveals a fascinating parallel between these two interpretations of sin. Both the mathematical sin function and the human experience of sin share a fundamental characteristic. They are cyclical. Just as the sin wave oscillates between positive and negative values, our lives are often marked by periods of moral highs and lows, virtue and vice, righteousness and transgression. This intriguing parallel offers a unique lens through which to view both mathematical principles and the complexities of human nature. By exploring the cyclical nature of the sine function, we can gain a deeper understanding of the ebb and flow of temptation, the struggle for redemption, and the constant potential for growth and learning that characterizes the human experience. This exploration allows us to reframe our understanding of sin not as a static state of condemnation, but rather as a dynamic process of deviation and return, a natural part of our journey toward greater self-awareness and moral evolution. Section 2. The seductive pull. Temptation's ascent on the sine curve. Imagine the allure of temptation as a gradual ascent on the sine curve. Initially, the pull towards a tempting act might be subtle, a mere whisper at the edge of our awareness. This stage corresponds to the gentle rise of the sine wave from its 0 point. As the temptation grows stronger, so too does the incline of the curve. Our thoughts and desires become increasingly fixated on the object of our temptation, pulling us further away from the horizontal axis of moral equilibrium. This upward trajectory mirrors the seductive power of temptation, drawing us in with promises of pleasure, satisfaction, or relief from our present circumstances. Like a moth drawn to a flame, we can easily become entranced by the allure of immediate gratification, often overlooking the potential long-term consequences of our actions. The higher we climb on this curve of temptation, the more intoxicating the experience becomes. Our rational mind, normally tasked with weighing the pros and cons of our actions, can become clouded by the intensity of our desires. We start justifying our behavior, convincing ourselves that this one transgression won't matter, that we deserve this indulgence, or that we'll make amends later. This internal struggle is mirrored in the steepening slope of the sine wave as it approaches its peak. The closer we get to the point of succumbing to temptation, the harder it becomes to resist its pull. The allure of the forbidden fruit, the promise of illicit pleasure, can overwhelm our better judgment, leading us further down the path of transgression. Section 3. Redemption's peak, ascending to virtue's heights. Just as the sine curve inevitably reaches its peak and begins its descent, so too does our journey through temptation eventually lead to a turning point. This turning point can manifest in various ways. a moment of clarity, a surge of guilt or remorse, or the realization of the potential negative consequences of our actions. This moment of realization marks the zenith of the sin wave, the point at which the allure of temptation begins to wane and the pull towards redemption starts to take hold. It is here, at the peak of the curve, that we often experience the full weight of our actions. The initial excitement or satisfaction we might have felt fades away, replaced by a growing sense of unease or even despair. We begin to recognize the harm our actions have caused, either to ourselves or to others, and a longing for atonement emerges. This longing for redemption is what propels us down the other side of the sine wave, back towards the horizontal axis of moral balance. This descent is often characterized by efforts to make amends for our transgressions, to seek forgiveness, and to realign ourselves with our values. It is a period of introspection, self-reflection, and a renewed commitment to living in accordance with our moral compass. The downward slope of the sine wave, in this context, represents the gradual process of letting go of the object of our temptation, of relinquishing the desire that led us astray. Section 4. The Descent. Succumbing to temptation's lure. Once more. The descent from the peak of transgression, however, is not always smooth or linear. Just as the sine wave continues its cyclical journey, dipping below the horizontal axis into negative values, so too can we find ourselves pulled back into the cycle of temptation and sin. The allure of our desires, even after we have tasted their consequences, can be difficult to fully extinguish. Old habits die hard, and we may find ourselves slipping back into familiar patterns of behavior, even when we know they are not in our best interest. This descent back into negative territory on the sine wave represents those moments when our resolve weakens, when the temptation resurfaces with renewed vigor. We might rationalize our actions, telling ourselves that we've already come so far and one small slip won't erase our progress. Or we might simply succumb to the allure of instant gratification, momentarily forgetting the lessons learned from our previous experience. This cyclical nature of temptation and redemption is a fundamental aspect of the human experience. It highlights the ongoing struggle between our higher and lower selves, between our aspirations for virtue and the pull of our baser instincts. The sine wave, in its elegant simplicity, provides a powerful visual representation of this internal tug of war that characterizes our moral lives. It reminds us that the path towards moral growth is not a straight line, but rather a continuous journey of peaks and valleys, of progress and setbacks. The key lies not in striving for an unattainable state of perfect virtue, but rather in acknowledging our capacity for both good and bad, and in learning from our mistakes as we continue to strive for a more balanced and fulfilling life. Section 5. The cyclical nature of our being. A constant dance between extremes. The cyclical nature of the sine wave, mirroring our own moral oscillations, offers a comforting perspective on the human condition. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, that the ebb and flow of temptation and redemption is an inherent part of what it means to be human. Just as the sine wave continuously moves between its highest and lowest points, we too experience the full spectrum of human emotions and moral choices throughout our lives. This understanding encourages compassion both for ourselves and for others. We learn to see our own transgressions and those of others not as permanent stains on our character, but rather as opportunities for growth and learning. The mistakes we make, the times we succumb to temptation, become valuable lessons that shape our moral development. They teach us about our vulnerabilities, our triggers, and the importance of cultivating resilience in the face of adversity. The cyclical nature of the sine wave also reminds us that life is a process of continuous becoming. There is no static endpoint, no final destination of perfect virtue or unwavering righteousness. Instead, we are invited to embrace the journey itself with all its inherent ups and downs. Each cycle of the sine wave, each experience of temptation and redemption offers a chance to learn, to grow, and to refine our moral compass. Section 6. The comforting mathematics of morality, finding solace in predictability. Within the seemingly unpredictable realm of human behavior, the mathematical precision of the sine function offers a sense of order and predictability. Just as we can anticipate the rise and fall of the sine wave, we can begin to recognize patterns in our own moral decision-making. By understanding the cyclical nature of temptation, we are better equipped to anticipate our own vulnerabilities and develop strategies for navigating challenging situations. This awareness allows us to approach moral dilemmas not with a sense of fear or judgment, but rather with a sense of curiosity and a willingness to learn. We can begin to identify the triggers that lead us down a particular path, the situations or emotions that make us more susceptible to temptation. This knowledge empowers us to make more conscious choices, to interrupt negative patterns before they take hold, and to cultivate habits that support our moral growth. The predictability of the sin wave also offers a sense of hope. Just as we know that the downward trajectory of the curve will inevitably be followed by an upward swing, we can find comfort in knowing that periods of moral struggle are not permanent. Even when we stumble or fall short of our own expectations, we can trust in the cyclical nature of our being, knowing that opportunities for redemption and renewal are always within reach. Section 7. Beyond Good and Evil. Embracing the full spectrum of human experience. The sine wave, oscillating between positive and negative values, challenges the simplistic dichotomy of good and evil often presented in moral discussions. It reminds us that human nature is far more complex and nuanced than these binary categories allow. Within each of us resides the capacity for both virtue and vice, for acts of great kindness and moments of profound selfishness. This understanding encourages a more holistic and compassionate view of ourselves and others. Rather than labeling individuals as inherently good or bad, we can begin to recognize the fluidity of human behavior, the way in which our actions are influenced by a myriad of internal and external factors. We are all works in progress, constantly evolving and navigating the complexities of the human experience. Embracing the full spectrum of the sine wave means acknowledging the darkness that exists within each of us, those shadow aspects of ourselves that we might prefer to ignore. However, it is often in confronting these darker impulses, in understanding the roots of our temptations and transgressions, that we can achieve true moral growth. The sine wave, in its unwavering honesty, reminds us that the path towards wholeness involves embracing both the light and the shadow, the virtuous and the flawed, as integral parts of our shared humanity. Section 8. The illusion of perfection. Why we should not fear the inevitable fall. The continuous fluctuation of the sine wave serves as a potent reminder that perfection is an illusion, a static ideal that exists outside the realm of human experience. Just as the sine curve never settles permanently at its highest point, we too should not expect to live lives devoid of mistakes, setbacks, or moral failings. To strive for such an unattainable standard is to set ourselves up for disappointment, frustration, and a perpetual sense of inadequacy. The beauty of the sine wave lies in its acceptance of imperfection, its embrace of the cyclical nature of growth and decay, progress and regression. Each descent on the curve, each moment of moral failing, presents an opportunity for learning, for course correction, and for deepening our understanding of ourselves. It is through these experiences, often painful and humbling, that we develop resilience, compassion, and a more nuanced moral compass. Therefore, we should not fear the inevitable falls, the moments when we succumb to temptation or stray from our chosen path. These experiences, though challenging, are not failures in the true sense of the word, but rather opportunities for growth disguised as setbacks. By reframing our perspective, we can begin to view these moments not with judgment or self-recrimination, but with curiosity and a willingness to learn from our mistakes. Section 9. The transformative power of forgiveness. Breaking the cycle of sin and guilt. One of the most powerful lessons we can glean from the cyclical nature of the sin wave is the importance of forgiveness. Just as the sine curve continuously moves through its cycles, never remaining stuck in a state of negativity, we too must learn to forgive ourselves and others for past transgressions. Holding on to guilt, shame, or resentment keeps us tethered to the lower points of the curve, preventing us from fully embracing the potential for growth and redemption that each new cycle offers. Forgiveness is not about condoning harmful actions or minimizing their impact. Rather, it is about acknowledging the transgression, allowing ourselves to feel the full weight of its consequences, and then making a conscious choice to release the negative emotions that keep us bound to the past. It is about recognizing that we are all capable of making mistakes, and that holding on to anger or resentment ultimately harms us more than it harms the person who wronged us. Just as the sine wave inevitably begins its upward trajectory after reaching its lowest point, forgiveness allows us to break free from the cycle of sin and guilt, opening ourselves up to the possibility of healing, growth, and renewed hope. It is through the act of forgiveness, both of ourselves and others, that we can truly begin to embody the cyclical nature of the sin wave, embracing the full spectrum of human experience with compassion, understanding, and a commitment to continual learning. Section 10. Towards enlightenment. Embracing the journey of growth and understanding. The parallel between the mathematical and moral concepts of sin, as embodied in the sin wave, ultimately points us towards a deeper understanding of the human condition and our own potential for growth and enlightenment. The cyclical nature of the sine function, with its constant ebb and flow, mirrors the dynamic process of moral development that characterizes our lives. It reminds us that there's no static endpoint, no final destination of perfect virtue or unwavering righteousness. Instead, We are invited to embrace the journey itself, with all its inherent ups and downs, its moments of triumph and its inevitable stumbles. Each cycle of the sine wave, each experience of temptation and redemption offers a chance to learn, to grow, and to refine our moral compass. It is through these experiences, both challenging and rewarding, that we come to a more nuanced understanding of ourselves, our values, and our place within the broader tapestry of human existence. The sine wave, in its elegant simplicity, serves as a powerful metaphor for the human journey towards enlightenment. It reminds us that true growth lies not in striving for an unattainable state of perfection, but rather in embracing the totality of our experience, the light and the shadow, the virtuous and the flawed. By accepting the cyclical nature of our being, by acknowledging our capacity for both good and bad, and by extending compassion and forgiveness to ourselves and others, we open ourselves up to the possibility of living more authentic, meaningful, and fulfilling lives.